The Fed15 podcast is presented by Serving Those Who Serve, a financial planning practice serving federal government employees and retirees all over the country. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be taken as financial advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. The opinions expressed by our hosts are their own and do not reflect the views, policies, or position of either Raymond James or Serving Those Who Serve. Securities are offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc. Serving Those Who Serve is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services, Inc. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Fed15 podcast presented by the team at Serving Those Who Serve. Each week, we'll discuss the latest news and info that feds need to know in 15 minutes or less. So whether you are a seasoned Clint Eastwood-esque federal employee or whether you are just a little baby just starting out in your career, Fed15 has got you covered. Grab your coffee, kick back, and we'll tell you what you need to know but might have missed in the federal space this week. We are your hosts. I am Katelyn Murray, as always, I hope. And I'm joined by Mr. Dan Sipe, my partner in crime. He is back with us this week.
Not quite as seasoned as Clint Eastwood.
Yes. Not quite. Needs a little more paprika for that, I think.
Indeed. Do you feel lucky?
The Clint Eastwood of federal benefits. How about we say that?
I've always seen myself more as the Sean Connery, actually.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Clint's a little sinewy. I think Connery's got that staying power, that gravitas. Yep. Love it. Well, how are you doing this week, Dan?
I'm good. Appreciate the little break I took there. Actually, somehow managed to catch COVID at church, which is always ironic to me. I've had it twice in my life. It's always, from what I can tell, getting into church. I don't know what God's trying to tell me. But came through it okay. So feeling hale and hearty and looking forward to fall.
Yeah. Yeah, I know the days have started to get a little shorter and I'm feeling it, but I'm leaning into my fall hobbies. I'm a big cross stitcher. I am also a project person, so I'm always painting something in the house or doing something. And a new one that I just found out about. This is very cool. Mary might be into this. Dan's wife. It's maybe not. Actually, it would probably frustrate her. There are these things. This is a new craft. Hadn't heard about it. Love crafts. It's called book alleys. And basically, it's for your bookshelf. So imagine you've got your little bookshelf, right? And, maybe if you're more of an adult than I am, then you have it aesthetically designed where you have your spaces and you have books. But I have way too many books. So my bookshelves are just loaded down. Anyway, if you have those cute little spaces in your bookshelves, the book alley is a paper craft that is themed. So you can make one where you take that little empty space between the books and it's a coffee shop. There's another one that's a map store. And they're really cute and aesthetic and for people that I don't know, go out of their minds when the sun goes down at 4 p.m. in the afternoon in the winter. And that's me. So I've purchased one of these kits. We'll see if I have the patience to put it together.
I think that's something that actually my daughter would be very keen on because she's a big, books person. I will confess, having books on my phone changed my life because then they're always with me. Mm-hmm. And, so if I'm stuck someplace, book, that type of thing. But she's very much the tactile, open it up, and very much a bookshelf person. So I think that would probably appeal to her.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I'll send you a link. Like I said, I can't vouch for how frustrating of a process it is yet, but we'll see. It looks cute.
Gotcha.
So we're going to see. Instagram got me on that one. So.
Gotcha.
Anywho, we have a very interesting episode today for you. We're going to be covering some new pieces from the blog. Dan is going to first talk with us about some federal retirement benchmarks and kind of understanding, not necessarily the title of the article is how much is enough, but I think we'll encourage you guys to view these as minimums, but some general guidelines for how do I know, am I sort of on pace with my savings? Am I sort of not on pace? How far behind am I, et cetera? So Dan's going to talk numbers with us there. And then I will cover a piece on folks who are looking to leave federal service early, how they can create a private sector compatible financial plan. So public service, federal service versus private sector. Sometimes there's a lot of terminology that needs translating there. And so we'll talk about, how to do that for some of our folks who have done DRP or maybe who have taken a Vera and are kind of in that spot. So before we get into that, Dan, talk to us about these benchmarks. One of the number one questions that we get as advisors here at Serving Those Who Serve is, do I have enough money? So talk to us about that question.
Okay, well, first off, benchmarks drive me nuts because they mean so many different things to so many different people. Like, oh, benchmark, I'm fine. Maybe, maybe not. One of the most maddening answers that we give in our field, and I understand it, is it depends.
Mm-hmm.
And it really does. And it depends on how much you enjoy spending money. Pure and simple. Because not to sound too much like an attorney from a Grisham novel, I have had more than one occasion with a client where I said, here's the thing. If you want to enjoy all of your income to the level that you are right now, you're going to work this way for the rest of your life. There won't be a day that you can stop because you're not putting enough away to grow for that date. So where we're talking about benchmarks here, I'm really going to encourage people to think of these in terms of minimums. And then I think that's a little safer. Now, interesting stat, considering I'm already there, I don't think about it that much anymore, but 11,000 Americans will turn 65 each day through 2027. And only 50% of boomers and Gen Xers believe they've saved enough. Okay. Now, one iteration of some of this wealth management guidance is, and again, benchmarks are tricky, is to target, and by this I say minimum, 10 times your annual income by age 65. So if you're making 100,000 at age 65, I'm never going to say to somebody, you completely failed having $1 million, but I'm not going to make a blanket statement and say, hey, you got to $1 million, you've got it made, because the world gets more expensive by the moment. If you wanted to sort of look over time, what some perhaps minimum benchmarks might be is by age 35, 1.5 times annual salary, have that put away. By 50, 5.5 times annual salary. And by age 60, I'd definitely go north of 10, 11 times annual salary. And again, that doesn't mean you're just done. It just depends on how much you like spending money. And I'm not saying that as a pejorative. Some people don't like spending money. They don't enjoy doing it. If you are a person that likes things and experiences that cost money, you need to factor that in. So that's why I always want to be careful putting these things out. So be realistic with yourself about your monthly and annual expenses. Start tracking them early and keep tracking. Okay. Now, you can anticipate changes, but don't automatically assume things are going to be cheaper for you in retirement. I won't have to dress for work. I won't have to commute. Well, let me tell you, healthcare costs start going up. And I really do wish I had a nickel for the number of people that are working super hard. My feds are very dedicated, and they're talking about all the things they want to do that they're not doing now in retirement. That means you're going to want to spend money. The other thing is, don't forget our favorite silent partner out there that we all hate, inflation. Okay? Inflation is participating in your growth and also the consumption of that money. So be strategic and understand who you are. The earlier you start tracking your expenses and get a sense of what it costs to live in your world, the better this is going to work out for you. Now, you'll see in the article, and we do this because it is the conventional statement that, for example, FERS retirement is a 3-legged stool. If you know us, if you worked with us, we believe there's a de facto 4th leg, and that is strategy. If you ever want to have a conversation about that, hit us up at meetings@stwserve.com. We will help you. But there's 3 legs: Social Security, the FERS pension, and TSP. Okay. You got to pay attention to all of them. And if you spend any time with me, I'm a big advocate where TSP balances are concerned is $1 million is the minimum. Okay, you need to be thinking in terms of getting over $1 million when you're going to retire, regardless of the date that you're thinking about it, because things are always going to cost more than we think. Okay, so as far as contribution and catch up, we've got some interesting things right now. TSP max for this year is 23.5. Catch up contribution 7,500. Yes, if you're 60 through 63, which I'm not, there are additional catch up contributions. We've got those listed. Now, one thing that's going to be an interesting twist, I think it could actually be a good thing for a lot of folks, is beginning of 2026, anybody earning over 145,000, their catch-up contributions will go into Roth TSP. And if you're sitting here cringing at that, don't. And if you want to know why you shouldn't, again, hit us up at STWServe.com. We'll explain it. I think it would be a good thing for you. Okay. So there's no universal right number for this. Okay. And I want to encourage everybody, as they're getting a sense of who they are financially, to understand the needs and the wants, because retirement becomes more about wants for a period in there. So work to get a realistic goal. You need help with that. We're happy to help you. We have resources on the website. And then don't just set it and forget it. Look at it each year. Stay on top of it. Benchmarks are good. Consider the minimums and be honest with yourself about, do I really like spending money? And if you do, you may work a little bit longer, but you're also going to have to be a little bit more aggressive about your retirement savings. So that's what I got, Katelyn.
Yeah, I think that's a good take. I mean, when people come to us with that question of, how much money do I need? How much money is enough money? The answer really is that it depends. It depends on, what you're planning to spend. Like Dan says, how much you enjoy spending. Sure. And the other thing that I always encourage people to think about, because I have other folks, you see all different sides of the spectrums. I have clients who are like, well, I really don't need that much. Like, I don't spend that much money right now. But think about the fact that at least 40 hours of your week, if you're still working, are spent in that work structure, right? When more time appears, like a lot of times folks are really good at saying, well, if I don't have to commute, then I don't have to have all of the costs that are associated with commuting. And I'm not working in the office, then I'm not going out to lunch every day. And that's true. But you also have 8 hours of your day plus any commute time that you've got that are totally free and open for you to frolic and, do things that are fun. And sometimes fun things cost money. So definitely put the kind of retirement vision, glasses on and think about, okay, if I had 8 or 10 extra hours in a day, what would I do? If it's gardening, maybe it's not that much money, or maybe it's lots of money. Folks who garden know.
I'll give you a great example. You can be a foodie.
Uh-huh.
Are you the foodie that wants to make it?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you the foodie that wants to go enjoy it in a variety of different restaurants with ever increasing number of stars?
Exactly. And some that may be far flung, right? Like,
sure.
Are you an adventurous
so
travel
thine own self
foodie?
Be true. Then as the day follows the night, thou canst be false to any man.
There you go. Yeah. Good. Sounds like a financial planner. Awesome. All right. Well, let's talk about leaving federal service early. I know there's a lot of folks in 2025 that are kind of in this camp. Private sector employers are actively recruiting in tech, consulting, and defense. And we know, because we work with feds firsthand, what a talented, credentialed group this really, truly is. There are several factors leading to the Fed to private sector transition for a lot of folks. Pull factors, so factors that are pulling folks into private service. There's higher pay often and remote work opportunities. The return to office mandate really messed a lot of people up. Some folks have moved and it kind of really leaned into that remote work. And obviously the landscape is very different for feds in 2025. But there are also push factors, right? Speaking of, the current landscape, burnout, agency changes, and again, kind of coming back to that return to office mandate, I think, here at Serving Those Who Serve, I think it's okay for us to acknowledge, regardless of what political side of the political spectrum you're on, 2025 is a little bit of a difficult year to be a Fed, right? There's a lot of changes to navigate. So for my folks who have decided to consider leaving federal service potentially early. It's important to kind of understand what happens to your benefits and how to create a private sector compatible financial plan. And that's what this piece on the blog is about this week. So what happens to your federal benefits if you leave early? So if you are eligible to retire, this was a big thing in our Vera webinars that we launched earlier this year to help educate people. This has been a huge thing. If you are eligible for an immediate retirement, that's what happens. Okay. There is no delaying. There is no this, that, if ands or buts. In most cases, although it does vary by agency, there is no severance pay. There is just immediate retirement. If you are lucky enough to be over the age of 62 with at least 20 years of service, that means you get a 1.1 times pension multiplier, which is awesome. For a lot of my folks who were in the camp where they were not age 62 or did not yet have their 20 years of service, but you are eligible for an immediate retirement, you get the 1 times pension multiplier. And I realize that was a bitter pill for a lot of folks, but it's okay. We adapt, we move forward, right? Your FERS contributions for my folks who are not eligible for immediate retirement, so you are not starting a pension, your FERS contributions, you can leave them in FERS, do nothing. That's going to preserve your service credit. That's going to preserve your FERS retirement eligibility if you rejoin later. You have the option to take your contributions out of FERS. But our advice here at Serving Those Who Serve is don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Only in very, 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 very rare cases does it even make sense. In most cases, you want to leave a foot in the door. You want to be able to pick up where you left off. I understand that 2025 maybe has been a rough year for some of us, but federal life is long in some cases. Federal service can be long. Administrations come and go. Things change. So don't cut yourself off from your options, okay? When it comes to TSP, you've got several options after leaving federal service with TSP. Option 1, you can leave the money in the TSP. Pros there, no tax consequences, no paperwork, no to-do item. There are familiar investment options there. You've got your 5 core funds and your L funds. You've got your mutual fund window, but with all the feds that we talk to, nobody's using that. It's also pretty expensive. And there are very low costs to maintaining the TSP. There are not no costs, really important distinction. It's not free. You pay fees in the TSP. They're pretty low. Not the lowest out there. Cons to leaving the money in the TSP is you've got fewer investment options. You've got limited flexibility there. Okay. And if you are not someone who is in this stuff day in and day out and really monitoring things, nobody's really looking at that TSP. Is it getting regularly rebalanced? That sort of thing. Okay, so things to consider there. Option 2, you can do a distribution and you can move the money to a new employer plan. So let's say you take a private sector gig, you've got a 401k, you can take the money in the TSP, move it into your 401k at the new employer. The pros here, that consolidates your accounts. It allows tax-deferred growth to continue on tax-deferred assets. Your Roth assets move to Roth. Everything stays the same, so there's no tax consequences. Pre-tax TSP goes into pre-tax 401k. Roth TSP goes into Roth 401k. The cons here, not all plans accept incoming rollovers. And with moving money from a TSP to a 401k, you may end up more restricted in your investment options,
Sure.
Depending on what those fund options in the 401k look like. I always tell people your employer is who's paying, by and large, most of the cost to maintain the 401k. Your investment options are only as good as the employer wants to make them. Now, if you work somewhere like Serving Those Who Serve, where you're working for a financial advisor and investment manager that is, moral and wants to do right by their employees, kudos to Dan, then you have awesome fund options. And that's great because the 401k is typically, in most cases, going to be cheaper than like an IRA that's managed by an investment advisor. If you are working for the vast majority of private companies who are interested in cutting costs, your options might not be as great. Okay. So look before you leave.
And the smaller the company, the more restrictive it is many times.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So think really, you want to get that list of investment options first for that 401k before you make any decisions about repositioning any money. You've got a couple more options, though. Option 3 is you can take a distribution from the TSP and kind of roll that over into an IRA, okay? Now, this is similar to moving from TSP to 401k, but this is, going into an independent retirement account, an individual retirement account, which is going to give you possibly the most investment flexibility because you can invest it in whatever that IRA custodian will allow you to invest in. So there is no pre-approved list of funds. You can buy, in not necessarily any mutual fund that exists, but a wide swath. This is also going to achieve the goal of consolidating accounts. It is going to allow you to have personalized management if you are interested in that with a financial advisor so that somebody's looking at that account on a regular basis, rebalancing, monitoring that portfolio really in accordance, ideally, with your long-term financial planning goals. And again, because you would be rolling pre-tax assets into pre-tax buckets, Roth assets into Roth buckets between that TSP and that IRA, if you do that correctly, there is no tax consequence. Be so careful with this. TSP will let you roll pre-tax assets into a Roth account and Roth assets into a pre-tax account. You can screw it up and it's a tax nightmare. Okay. So the guardrails on this are really loose with TSP. And that website, it's awesome that we can do things on the website. There's not a lot of guidance there. So
sure.
You want to make sure you're on the up and up there. There are cons to going the IRA route. Possible fees, possibly higher than what you're paying in the TSP. I want to be cognizant here. I'm aware that Fidelity exists. I'm aware of no load funds. Those are going to be cheaper than TSP. But if you're rolling over to an advisor who's going to be looking at this and managing this for you, it's going to be higher than what you're paying in the TSP. You're also getting more service for that. So you've got to weigh your pros and cons there. If you move assets from a TSP into an IRA, you may lack ERISA creditor protections. Qualified employer plans are protected from things like bankruptcy, et cetera. IRAs are not. So be aware of that. And then really, if you're working with an advisor, this one's a little amorphous, but the quality of the advisor is going to kind of dictate in some cases the quality of your service, right? I think that's fairly evident for us. And then be aware of possible termination fees associated with the IRA if you decide to go a different route down the road. Now, the last option with the TSP, and this is probably the least attractive option, is you can cash that sucker out. Now, if it's Roth, if it's pre-tax money, you would say, oh, well, of course, if I cash my pre-tax TSP out, then I'm going to pay a bunch of federal taxes and state taxes if I live in a state with state income tax. If it's Roth money, though, Katelyn, I don't have to pay any taxes. So what's the issue with cashing it out? The issue is if you are in your 40s or your 50s or even your 60s and you pull all your Roth TSP money out, you are sacrificing 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of tax-free growth in a Roth account. So you're not sacrificing the money that you have. You get that all back, sure, maybe in some cases if you're old enough. But in some cases, in all of those cases, when you're cleaning out a Roth account, you're foregoing all of that tax-free growth forever and always. And also, Roths are some of the best accounts for beneficiaries to inherit. So I would say whether it's pre-tax or whether it's Roth, really, really, really think twice about cashing it out. The pros are you get money. Yay. Everybody loves money. The cons are, again, if it's pre-tax, you've got income taxes due, federal and state if state's relevant for you. If you're under 59 and a half, you're also paying a 10% penalty there. You're permanently reducing your retirement savings. So you're setting yourself back from those benchmarks, those minimum benchmarks that Dan was talking about. So really think many times about that fourth option before you pull the trigger there. And you're going to want to talk to somebody to really
Absolutely.
identify that is the best option for you, even if you do need cash. Couple other things to hear really briefly, since I know we're over time. Your FEHB, if you're leaving federal service, the requirements for continuation for FEHB is you've got to be eligible for full retirement. You've got to get that retirement distribution, that retirement annuity, that FERS annuity for most of you, and you're going to want 5 years of coverage under FEHB, okay? Or your entire career if it's shorter than 5 years in certain cases. So if you are leaving before you meet those requirements, you're forfeiting your FEHB coverage. You can have temporary health coverage for up to 6 to 18 months, but you're going to pay the full premium. Right now, remember, your employer's paying half your premium. You're going to pay the full premium, and there's going to be a 2% fee associated with that. So that health insurance is pretty pricey. Other thoughts on building a bridge to the private sector. You want to identify your gap years. So the time between your separation from federal service and your eligibility for your pension, Social Security, healthcare, Medicare is another kind of gap period. If you are going private sector, you are in the boat that I'm in, which is I don't get health insurance before I turn 65, and private health insurance before Medicare is really expensive. I was just looking at a plan the other day for a gal who's private sector, and that is the number one expense, is those couple years before Medicare kicks in. Some income strategies that you can look at: TSP drawdowns, pulling from Roth IRAs, pulling from brokerage accounts, leaning on your investment portfolio. If you're somebody who is undercutting your pension, or maybe you won't have a pension, the investment portfolio becomes way more important to your income and retirement. And you want to think through those health coverage options really carefully. Key mistakes to avoid, in our opinion, and in the very generalist of terms: cashing out the TSP. Really, you don't want to do that unless it's a worst case scenario. Withdrawing FERS contributions unnecessarily and losing all your credit and closing the door on a potential option, and assuming automatic qualification for deferred retirement. Please don't make any assumptions in 2025 as a Fed. Know your stuff. Okay. And if you don't know your stuff, you've got great resources. STWS has tons of free federal employee benefits webinars. We also have a ton of blog content. We also have this podcast, and you can always reach out to us at meetings@stwserve.com. If you are kind of in this transition period and you need a guiding light and you need to think through this stuff, measure twice, cut once, reach out to us at meetings@stwserve.com. We'd be happy to talk with you about it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for staying with us a little bit longer. We felt it was worth it. Hope you did as well. And know this, we'll be back next week to bring you the latest updates you need to make informed decisions about your career and financial well-being as a Fed.
Absolutely. Now, analytics shows us that close to 3/4 of the people who are watching our videos, and this might be you if you watch on our website, are not subscribed. So if you do me a favor, if you are watching this on our website, just click our little YouTube icon and click subscribe. That's going to get you updates on every single new episode that we post. And it's also going to boost the signal so that your friends and colleagues who are also in the federal community, whether employees or retirees, can get notified and find out about this podcast. You can also go the old-fashioned route, share it with your friends. Send it to your social circle. If you've got a couple Feds in there, we'd be happy to meet them and help them out as well.
Absolutely. And for more information on the topics we covered today and way more, be sure to check out our blog at blog.stwserve.com. And while you're at it, subscribe to our newsletter, The Weekly Serving. Then you get the latest news for Feds delivered straight to you. You don't have to go looking for it. It'll be right there.
Absolutely. And for those who want to dive even deeper into learning about federal benefits and financial planning for Feds, remember those complimentary benefit webinars that I was talking about? Well, we have some coming up that are very, very interesting, very helpful, very popular. Our TSP planning webinar. So when I was running through those options really quickly of all the different stuff with TSP, if that has your head spinning, we have a TSP planning webinar coming up on September 26th. From 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'm going to be hosting that one with our friend Ed Zerndorfer, leading federal employee benefits savant. We're going to be talking all about TSP and the ins and outs of all of that. We also have an estate planning session coming up. This one is a little bit more rarely offered. We offer it periodically, but it is really, really good stuff. September 30th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. again. I'm hosting that one as well. Me and Ed, we're going to tag team it. We will be talking everything that Feds need to know for estate planning. So whether you're an employee or whether you're a retiree, the stuff that you need to know to make sure that your wishes are carried out after you're gone and make sure that you're not putting your beneficiaries in a tough spot. I highly encourage you to join us for that one. Estate planning is something really good to be thinking about, especially heading into the holidays, right? With Thanksgiving and family and those sorts of things. You know, it's a good time to kind of turn inward and focus on that in the fall season. So join us for that September 30th. Of course, if you prefer a one-on-one approach, I know everybody's schedules are really busy these days. You may not have 3 hours in the middle of a workday. You can reach out to our team directly for a financial planning consultation at meetings@stwserve.com. We would be happy to talk about whatever it is that you're going through, whatever kind of support you need. and see if we can be of service to you.
Absolutely. Well, folks, thanks for listening to Fed15. I'm Dan Sipe.
And I'm Katelyn Murray.
And we will see you absolutely next week.